And we're back with the Indie Magazine podcast. Today we've got a special episode with Kevin Basset, our chief music journalist and resident musician, and Amanda Dumas, a pop singer and songwriter based in Las Vegas.
This episode is a part of a series accompanying the release of Kevin's new collaborative album, Flows. Stick around after the interview as Tristan and I discuss episode 5 of Shōgun. Enjoy!
I'm here with Amanda Dumas, songwriter extraordinaire, local Vegas vocalist, songwriter, all the things. She's great.
All the things, baby, all the things.
So how's your day going?
You know, it's going pretty good. Just recovering from the week and trying to, get to it, prep a few things. In the studio, I'm going to be doing a little build out in the garage, so I'm super pumped.
That's super exciting.
I know, because I cannot record in this office anymore. Like, I need to, soundproof this room, and the dogs, like, anytime, because I've been recording audiobooks, anytime I start to record, 10 dogs bark outside, and I'm just not soundproofed enough in here. So I'm like, you know what? Forget this. I'm building a silent box in my garage to hide away from the world. So I'm very excited.
That is very exciting. There's something fun about just like building a new like sound space, like this
Oh my
new
gosh.
thrilling feeling.
Yes, and I have an idea that I'm sure I'll do recording in it, but I'm sure I'll also just have an excuse to go in there and be in silence for a while, since I also have a 5-year-old. So that'll also be mom's timeout.
That sounds phenomenal. Yeah.
Right.
When I first set up the sound dampening stuff in my room, in my like studio space, at first I was like, oh, this is gonna be weird. And then I walked in one day when I wasn't even recording something, just like walked in, and it felt so much quieter than the rest of the house. And I was like, this is glorious.
Like, this is it. It's magic.
Yeah. I feel like even if I wasn't into like recording and stuff, I would still want like silent spaces and like soundproofing set up for my house just to.
Yeah, it's like the sound that comes out of your mouth is the only sound you hear, and you don't hear like that bounce back and echo. It is glorious.
It's a great feeling. I mean, you want like a little bit of it so it doesn't feel like completely dead, but having it dampened is just.
Well, one of my dreams is to have a padded room space, so I can just like scream and throw myself against a padded wall. I know it sounds weird, but
no, that sounds awesome.
For most of my life, I'm like, that seems like a room that would work for me. And then also a break room, you know how like you can go and like just smash dishes. So I need like the silent space and then also the really loud, destructive space. Just balance,
Yeah, you need that. You need both to have that full existence. I agree with that. I'm totally a fan of that. I don't know that I would need the break space as much personally. Sometimes I do feel the urge to break things, but I feel like for the most part that silent space is enough.
That I would probably go in the silent space more than the break space for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Great. I'm super excited that you're building a new sound studio. That would be great. It really helps increase the quality of things. Okay, so starting off, I wanted to get into the genesis of how we met and then talk about the song and your reactions as you got the song initially. So I'm going to tell my version of how we met, and then I want to hear yours.
Okay.
Because I think it's a fascinating thing. It's kind of a weird it was a weird experience. So I co-host this open mic at Taverna Costera and every Wednesday, and one day Amanda came and I was trying to decide something. I think we were trying to decide if we're going to do it inside or outside. And someone's like, well, why don't you ask her? And I was like, okay. And so then I instantly like came at you asking, and then there was just like instant sass back and forth between us as if we'd known each other for years. Like it wasn't like it felt completely natural and normal. And then I just like moved on with my life. And then we like talked more afterwards. And I mean, we both were interested in kind of each other's vocals, and then from there it kind of sparked the friendship of, oh, we got to do something together. Is that pretty
100%.
much?
I mean, that's dead on because I had heard about Taverna Costera, and then I'm like, ooh, there's an open mic. Let me go check it out. And I remember walking in, just moved here, from LA a couple years ago, and I'm like, all right, let's get in the scene. Let's see what this is about. And yeah, I remember walking in. I was like, where do I go? I don't know, like where's is this the right entrance? Am I in the right place? And then here comes this guy, and it's like, hey, and I'm like, hey, you're like, so should we do this outside because it's getting cold? And I'm like, oh wow, you're really pressuring me. And yeah, that's when the sassy banter started, and it was kind of like it was a wrap since then. And I remember like once you sang a couple of your songs, and I just loved your style, and I was like, oh my god, I like him. So yeah, it was just such a cool, like, natural, authentic, like, artist connection.
Yeah, I feel like that type of stuff, like the way it happened with us, doesn't happen very much, where it's just like this instant, like, oh yeah, no, this person's cool. I want to work with this person. They're very fun. I feel like it's just like the instant we get each other type of vibe going on.
Yeah, it was magic. It was magic. And then
It
I
was
was so
magic.
stoked when you reached out to me, afterwards, and were like, hey, do you want to do a collab? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to do a collab. Because it's hard. It's hard to find other artists to collaborate with, especially when you're a solo artist. And, I always feel like when I co-write with people and when I do a collaborative piece, it just is amazing. It's great to do stuff by yourself and everything, but like there's just something beautiful about that collaboration and getting so many different points of view, and it just makes everything better. And so I'm just so grateful that we met and that we're doing this.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Yeah, yeah, I agree with everything you said. That collaboration is just, it takes it to the next level. I think going into this album of mine, Flows, that was one of, because I was like kind of considering it, praying about it, meditating over it, and like, okay, what do I want to do for my next thing? And I thought one of my favorite things ever is to work with other people, work with like other artists, other singers, other rappers. And so I thought, okay, that's what I'm doing. This whole thing is just all collaborations, and it's just so cool when it works out so well. And yeah, with Flower Gardens, I was like, oh, I think this would be, I knew I wanted a female vocalist on the end. And it was weird because I'm like, oh, I don't want her singing the choruses. Like I've got the choruses, but I want that like feminine perspective on that third verse in some way. And I didn't know what way I wanted it exactly. And when I met you, I was like, I think Amanda could pull this off. Like I think this is the right fit for her. And I wasn't 100% sure, but I was like, I'm gonna bet on it. What was your thoughts when you got the song?
When I got the song and when I heard the hook, I was like, okay, I'm like this vibe. It gave me this kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, like a hippy dippy vibe, with the daffodils and lilacs. I was just kind of like, it was very visual, right? So like the way you painted the picture, and I'm a visual person.
Mm,
So with those lyrics, it took me into like, a flower garden, right? And I'm like,
hmm.
okay, cool. And then when I heard your verse, and what's the other artist that you
His name's
collaborated?
Upgrade.
Upgrade. And then when I heard Upgrade's verse, I'm like, okay, so I see where they're going here. And I was just honestly like, when you did the first verse, I was cracking up. Like literally, like I thought it was so like hilarious, and I like resonated with it immediately, just with like where it was going. Because when you first hear the hook, it's like, okay, where is it going to go? And then once you kind of started going and spitting off, I'm like, okay, 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 let's work with this. So it was really cool. And then, of course, I was nervous because there was really no direction. You're like, here, listen to the song, write something, see what happens. I'm like, okay, and it's the first time we're working together, so I'm like,
Right.
all right, so this could be awesome, he could love it, or he could be like, this is crap. So I was like, well, let's see what happens. And so I mean, that was my initial. It's just like, it felt very like free and cool and funny. So I
Yeah,
liked it. I liked it.
perfect. And then I feel like what you came up with was exactly in that vibe of like, it was so unexpected for me. Like I didn't expect what you were making, but I felt it fit perfectly. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I was just, kind of listening just to just kind of losing yourself in thought, and just kind of where I got is like scatterbrained, and literally the day that I sat down, I'm like, all right, let me write to this. So, and I think I told you this when we were recording, but I, no joke, have on my phone 11 a.m. every day that says find my phone, because for some reason my couch eats my phone, the counter eats my phone, the house eats my phone. Like, I don't know where this phone ends up at all. Like, I will have it in my hand and 2 seconds later I'm like, where's my phone, where's my phone, where's my phone? So it was just really funny, just the theme of the song. And so with that lyric, like, where did I lose my phone again today, is actually my life. And
Yeah.
so I felt like I resonated so much with that. So yeah, it was fun to write to, for sure.
Yeah, it was cool how like it everyone's personalities come out so much, because I feel like this is such a relatable topic of just like getting completely off track when you're talking to someone and like trying to remember like, oh shoot, like I don't remember what we're talking about. I don't know where my phone is. I don't like, and then just like all the thoughts start flooding in and you're like, oh shoot, I know there was a purpose to all of this. And I love your perspective on it, because I feel like the first two perspectives are from someone trying to tell someone something. And then your perspective is don't even worry, because I wasn't even listening.
Exactly. And no, I'm like, yes, I know I'm supposed to be listening, but I'm in a whole other world, man. Which is, I think, what happens, and it's
Oh,
like, and
100%.
it's even that thing where, you do, hear about active listening and everything, but sometimes when you're in a conversation, people are so busy thinking about what they're going to say next, or they just completely go into some other world. And it is funny just to really touch on that. And it is cool how it came together. And I'm so glad. I just love how much fun we were having in the studio too. We were just cracking up so much.
Yeah, oh, it was hilarious. It was just such a funny, like, what's crazy to me, I think one of the coolest contrasts, and some of my favorite artists have done this, like Tenacious D, Flight of the Conchords, where the music is excellent. Like, and the artistry and the vocals, because your vocals are incredible. You've got this stunning vocal talent,
Oh,
but
thank
it's
you.
singing about the silliest things. And I just love the dichotomy there, where you're saying like I'm contemplating the meaning of butterflies, and it's like like I got lost in the meaning of
What?
butterflies, and then we have like these thick harmonies like stacked up, where it's like this super intense moment, but the subject matter is just like, oh, wait a second, this is so silly.
But it is okay, man. Like, let's really think about this for a second. What is the meaning of butterflies, man? Like, seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's excellent. It's exactly it. It's so it's so on the nose. I think it's so, I don't know. I just loved it. I think also like because I feel like within the artist scene here in Vegas, you're not like as known an artist yet. Where like I even tell people I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm like really excited. I got to work with like Amanda Dumas," and they're like, who's Amanda Dumas? And I'm like, she's like the best kept secret. I feel like you're the best kept secret of this like local Vegas community, because your vocals are so stunning, your songwriting's so intelligent, but like people don't know who you are yet.
You're so sweet.
And so like when you come out, it's like, oh, there's like mystical creature like emerging for a second. And it's like, oh, did you catch it? Like there was a unicorn like running across the field, you know?
You're so funny. It is cool. I mean, it's scary too. You like when I've been in California my whole life, right? And,
Right.
Performed a lot out there, and, was on the music scene for years and toured. And then to come into a new town where it's like, okay, I got to vibe this out. I got to vibe out. Like, I need to find my people, and I found you. You're one of my peeps now out here. But yeah, it is something to really like, plant your feet and really get into this music and artist creative scene in Vegas, and just find my place. So I think and like, I think also with the lyric that you said, how, you let things come naturally. and organically, I think that's something that just really resonates with me right now at this stage of my life,
Hmm.
because I think that's how we connected. It was just so organic, and we just have just been kind of going with the flow, and I really want that to be the my whole experience, in this town, and meeting, the people that I know I'm going to meet and connect with, just as long as it just comes naturally, don't force it, don't fake it, just be. And I think that's, where you really make authentic connections and true long lasting friendships, and, business relationships with people, when you just, cut the BS out and just be true to who you are.
Yeah, yeah, and try to like get to the root of what's connecting the person you're in front of. Like truly like kind of
Yeah.
like being in the moment, being with the person and not trying to like seek anything, just being like, "Hey, let's just interact as normal people for 5 seconds." And I think that's
Yeah.
so I agree with you. That's so important.
Because even that song, it's like, even though it's like we're all like in our own heads and going all over the place, it's still, I feel like the core of it is about connection, right? Like
Mm,
at the end of it, we're trying to connect, and I think that speaks to our world, and just what we all seek is connection,
mm.
with all of the comedy around it. Like, it's connection.
I love that perspective on it because I haven't thought about it in that way, but you're 100% right. And it expresses this idea of vulnerability, you know?
Hmm.
Like, because we're telling people, like, oh, shoot, I can't pay attention right now. It takes a lot of vulnerability to admit, like, I want to be in the presence, but I'm currently not in the present.
Hmm.
And so I need you, like, I'd love for you to have patience with me as I'm trying to, like, be here with you. Like, I'm trying to connect. So here's the vulnerability. Here's, like, heart on my sleeve about this. I think that's such a great perspective. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm curious. I feel like we might have talked about this, but I don't remember. What what kind of like music did you grow up on? Like when you were, did you grow up like your whole life in LA, or did you move to,
Yeah.
you were all life in LA. So what type of music were
Oh.
you exposed to early on there?
As a kid, of course, like lots of musical theater. I've been, in performing arts since I was 7. But also I grew up a lot on jazz. I mean, my mom, she was in the jazz scene. She actually was like a DJ on a jazz radio station on the East Coast back in the day. And she worked at NCA jazz, in the jazz division before I was even born. So she really brought me up on jazz. We go to the Playboy Jazz Festival every year at the Hollywood Bowl, and like that's my jam. And yeah, I mean, I remember just driving in the car on my way to school, listening to Kira 101 and listening to all the oldies, Please Mr. Postman, and all those, good tunes. And so that's really, what I grew up on, as a youngin. I lived in New York for like a little while, in my early 20s, but let's pretend like I'm still there. Um, and that was cool. I was there for a few months. Let's pretend like I didn't say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and did like a little off Broadway play. And then I came back. I ran out of money, which is kind of like the story you hear a lot in New York. Like, I was in New York, and then I ran out of money, and then I went back home. So that was the beginning and the end of that journey, but it was still fun. Um, yeah, and then just like musical theater. I was classically trained, like with vocals, singing Vivaldi and all that stuff. And I've always had a really eclectic view. I love Jamiroquai,
Hmm.
Miles Davis, Billie Holiday. I don't know if you know this one artist. Her name's Beth Hart, but she's freaking awesome. There's this one song called, I think it's like Out of This Town or something, but it talks about getting out of LA, and she's amazing. She kind of has like this Janis Joplin vibe to her, but I was always obsessed with her voice and her delivery. Um,
I want to check her out like
and
immediately after this is done.
yeah,
I'm now
it's
excited.
really cool. It's really cool. Nancy Wilson, of course, Layla Hathaway, I opened for her a lot. And Earth, Wind and Fire, of course. So yeah, I mean, I'm really just across the map. Like, people always laugh at me. My friends are like, "Do you literally know almost every song?" And I'm like, "I don't know, do I?" But I, you listen to somebody can play anything, and I start singing along. They're like, "How do you know this song?" I'm like, how do I not? I mean, it's music, and I love music, so that's just in my blood, in my
Oh,
bones.
I relate so hard, especially with the idea of like going from, musical theater to like uh, you know, modern pop to like old classical music. To me, I'm like, they're all the same thing. Like, don't you get it? Like, that's kind of my
Yeah.
perspective. I feel like sometimes I'm
Hmm.
preaching to people and I'm like, can you guys not understand that Max Martin's like a modern Mozart? Like, let's just get that through everyone's skulls. But I feel like, people don't have that same respect, or they don't like think of things as bops that are like these older things. And so, but I love that idea of like, hey, it's all music. Let's listen to
Hmm.
it and enjoy it.
And yeah, let's be honest, like Mr. Rogers had some slaps. He was getting that jazz some, you remember, like it was crazy, and you think as a kid growing up and I'm listening to Mr. Rogers and he's got like this sick jazz riffs going on in the background. And then as an adult, I'd like listen back. I'm like, oh wow. Okay, okay, Mr. Rogers. So I think it's pretty cool.
Mr. Rogers does not mess around. That guy goes,
Yeah,
it's
don't mess around.
wild. You hear
You
just
really
like,
just listen to the music. Yeah, you're like, okay.
yeah, if you like take a step back and you're like, hey, let's not think of this as a children's show. Let's think of it as like a jazz concert, and you listen to like what's going on in the instrumentation, you're like, hold the phone. Like,
Yep.
what is going on here?
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I relate that. Yeah, yeah, that's so true. There was this one summer when I don't know how we discovered it, but we discovered the song Hace Calor from Sesame Street.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that song.
Hace calor, hace calor. Could fry an egg on the cement. It's so
Okay,
caliente.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, brilliant song, but we discovered it and I learned it on the uke and I just started annoying the crap out of my sister with it. And the whole time I'm like, this is a bop, guys. Like,
Like, why does anyone get it? The song's awesome.
I'm like, this is amazing. Like, people should be going wild to Hace Calor right now. And I just wanted it to be bigger than it was. And I was just like, come on,
I love it.
everyone, check this out.
Hey,
Hace Calor is insane.
maybe you gotta do a remake, who knows? Maybe you
Oh,
gotta do something with that.
I, I,
Blow it up.
I am totally down to cover Hace Calor. I think at the time I was TikToking more because I tried that for a second and realized it was my, not my social media, but
Same, same.
oh yeah. Oh, so you tried the TikTok thing too and you were like, nope, this isn't.
I did, it was just, I think, yeah, I don't know why it was just a little bit challenging. I think, there's certain things like I've learned about myself where like there's some things I could do on my own and then other things I have to hire people to do. So like if I were to actually have a TikTok presence, like it would, it's a full-time job, it really is. And it's a lot. And I just couldn't crack the code. There's so much like, it seems like a lot of rules and it was stressing me out. So I'm like, all right, well, I think other people are better at trying to crack the code for sure.
Oh yeah. No, that's how I felt. I was just like, I don't even like this. Like I didn't like going
Yeah,
on TikTok and I was like, what do I like going on? So I did YouTube and that functioned a lot better for me. Like I understood that in a better way. But yeah, no, it's TikTok's a mess. I can't get it.
yeah, it's challenging for me for sure. So, I have some friends that are really good at it, and I'm like, can I just send you like clips and then you can do whatever is supposed to be done with this? Because I am not good at it.
Yeah, it's like I just need someone to help me to be in charge of my TikTok. But then the thing is, if
Yeah.
you're good at TikTok, why would you do it for other people? Like you can make so much money.
Just doing it for years. But I don't know. I mean, there is an industry around that too, right? Like you have these
Mm.
social media, people who like they have companies and they just manage other people's social media. That's what they do. And they schedule out all the posts. And like it's a huge industry. And they, so they're making money to help other people make money. It's pretty, I mean, the world is I don't know if you ever did MySpace or
I
I might have
I
been
didn't
too
do
young for
MySpace.
that.
It
Yeah,
wasn't
see,
quite that
so
I was too young. I just didn't care. Like I had to be coerced and convinced to do Facebook.
Right, right. Well, this
Like,
is the thing. MySpace used to be like the thing that was cool about MySpace is we actually had to code our own pages back then. Like you had to code in MySpace to get your stuff posted properly. Nowadays it's like no, we if you go on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, like all the coding's done for you. You just have like the platform that you use and you put it in. But that's the one interesting thing I was thinking about with MySpace is like, oh yeah, we had to actually code our own pages then, and now it's like now we have to take classes and pay thousands of dollars to like learn code, but you were forced to do it in MySpace.
that's better. I think all social
Yeah,
like
I
I
think so
think it
too.
should be like you can't have a social media unless you can code. That just
Yeah,
makes
you should
sense.
be able to code it. I think that could weed out, yeah, so you have to be like technically savvy and, other stuff.
Yeah, I like that too because I feel like the technically savvy people are the people who understand the psychological damage that social media can do to you.
Right,
I don't
right,
know why,
right.
but it seems like those guys are the ones that are like, yeah, why would you ever let your children on this? And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, and it's always like the most tech savvy people who are saying like, no, that's stupid. You should not
because you
like,
understand it. Yeah. Well, that's why you remember like we connected on Instagram and I was like, here's my cell, like text me or else I may never reply because like I'm not good with, social media, like unless it's something specific. Like if I'm promoting a show or something
right,
like that, then I'll post it just because it's easier to access more people than individually text message, and then other people that are it's not my family may want to check it out. But
right.
other than that, it's really hard for me to keep up with. And I don't like alerts. I disable all of my alerts. I don't like to be harassed by my apps.
Oh, same, same. I don't have any alerts on for Instagram. It's weird because I feel like I didn't expect that. Like personally, I would delete all my social media if Instagram wasn't so essential within the music community for connecting
Yeah,
with people,
100%, 100%.
which is unexpected. I don't know why it's Instagram, but like everyone in the music community uses Instagram like LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the musicians LinkedIn. Oh my gosh, it totally.
100%.
I
Like at
that's
this
I didn't
point,
even think of it that way.
like I don't follow people who are like my friends on Instagram. I don't follow like it is literally like a business page for me.
Yeah.
You know, there's a few people I
Hmm.
follow who are friends, but I'm like, I've even thought recently, like, I should probably just stop following anyone who's not like a musician or an artist because there's no point for me to like, I don't use Instagram for that. I use it for artists. That's it. That's what it is. It's
Well,
a
and I
business
think that actually
Instagram.
helps your algorithm too. Like it's like when I was trying to learn how the social media works, it's like you
Mhm.
have to do something with the algorithm and, be intentional with your posts and even intentional with who you follow because then that back end, they're like, oh, okay, you follow these artists and stuff. So then they'll start putting more of those people in your feed. And then it kind of helps connect you to the world that you want to be connected to. And when it's like super, like too diverse or too sporadic, or at least like if you have to spend, I think, a certain amount of time in one
Mm.
space. But if it's too all over the place, then the algorithm doesn't really know where to send you to. And so, yeah, you really have to teach the AI what you want it to show you,
Okay.
which is also a lot of thinking involved. And, it's over my
Yeah.
head. But I did learn that when I was trying to do like YouTube, and figure out like, what does all this stuff mean? And like, why is it so strategic? Like, it's also strategic, you got to take classes to really get good at this stuff. But that's why people charge so much to help people do it.
Yeah. I remember because I feel like YouTube's a little bit simpler in that all that really matters on YouTube is AVD and click through rates. So basically, you just have to make
What is
sure.
AVD?
Okay, I'll explain real quick after I
Audio
said it.
Video Drive? Okay, go
No,
ahead.
it's average view duration.
Oh,
So how
okay.
long they view your video matters, and then click through rate is if they see your thumbnail, how likely are they to click it?
Right. Okay.
And those are the two metrics that they use. And I know those are the two metrics they use because I've listened to top YouTubers talk to people at YouTube and they say, yeah, the only things I focus on are average view duration and click through rates. And
No.
the like person making the algorithms like that is exactly what you should be focusing on.
Okay,
Nothing
very
else
good.
matters. Like just
Nice.
pay attention to that AVD, pay attention to that click-through rate, get those numbers as high as you can, and you'll be smooth sailing.
Well, look, I just learned something new today. I love it when I do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done a bit of research on it. I also really like statistics. Got my stuff in economics. I can't
Nice.
believe um we've already spent 20 minutes on this or 30 minutes. It's crazy how time
Just
passes.
talking about social media or just the
Yeah,
whole call?
just no, just the fact that I feel like talking to you, I feel like we just start like going off.
I know
And
we
like
did. Yeah, I mean, if you edit this, I mean,
it's
there's
it's
gonna be
it's just it is legitimately like the song, which makes me think like we can't edit it because our thoughts just kind of run wild when we're together. I feel like we both have that personality, and so it just fits perfectly.
oh my gosh, you're right. Like this is exactly what the song is talking about.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So I'm like, no, no, no,
Oh
this is
my
fine. This is
gosh.
this is how it's supposed to be. Um, so I'm gonna try to take it back on track for a second and remember what we're
All right.
actually talking about, which is music. Oh yeah. So my question was, what was because on MySpace you had like a song that you could play like as people entered your page. Do you remember what your song was that you had playing as people entered your MySpace page? What was that?
It was called my song. It was called "Give Me More." Yeah,
By?
one of my songs
Oh, it
by
was one of
Amanda
your
Dumas.
songs.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sick.
Yes, because that was like my first, like this platform, it was before the Twitter and Instagram. So like that was my artist page.
Oh,
And so those
sick.
I would get my music up in there. And then I would have, I think I had a music video at the time that I was able to code into the page or something that would come up. I mean, I don't even know if I could see it now, but it's so crazy. But yeah, so it would have been my music. Yeah.
Oh, sick. That's so cool. I did not know that. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So you released, okay, like trying to understand your music in timeline. So you had that EP come out with Gimme More on it and other songs, right?
Yeah, a
Or was there
thousand
something
years
before?
ago.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the EP. That was really my only official release I've ever done. Honestly, I have a full length record that I never released. But yeah,
Is it
this
recorded and stuff?
EP.
It's just not
Oh
released
yeah,
or
it's mastered. Yeah, it was mastered at Capitol Records, and I mean, I should release it. I was going to, but I did the EP. When I was younger, I don't know how old I was, maybe like 17. I got a publishing deal with BMG. Then they turned into Universal. So I had, like an artist development co-publishing deal with them as a songwriter. And so I put together this EP, just trying to figure out like, where the sound's gonna go, collaborate with some artists. There's actually a song on Spotify. I think it's even in Instagram. It's called Too Perfect. I got to look up the artist name, but I'm one of the writers on that song. I wrote that song. It was like going to be one of my songs, but then they pitched it to a different artist, which was one of my dreams, is to hear like another artist sing a song that I wrote.
Mhm.
And so, tried to do some different projects. I toured, performed, and I went around, the US with that EP for a really long time, got some play on the radio, with Gimme Mo. And then I recorded a full length record that I didn't release. I think I was going to call it The Girl Outside for one of the singles I was going to release with it. So I don't know. I might put the songs out, at some point. But then, things kind of changed after I toured. I opened for a lot of great artists, like Earth, Wind, and Fire, Etta James, Shaka Khan at the Greek Theater, and just did a lot of like performing and like opening gigs. And then I just, it was tough. I think the industry was changing a lot at that time.
Mm.
And for me as a Black artist, my sound is very unique. Like now I think like releasing the music that I, wrote before, I think it would be received by executives specifically, but also the world a lot differently than back then, because, you know, what would happen was they'd look at me, they'd see this very like dark skinned black female. And then, but when they listened to me, it was like very pop, alternative, soul, like this eclectic sound. And so the record executives were like, how to market you. Like they couldn't see it. Like they're like, I look at you and they're like, I mean, I remember walking into Warner Brothers and I walked in and met with A&R, and then it was of the pop division. And then he was like, hold on, let me get the guys from the urban division to meet with
No.
you. And I was like, okay, but like my sound is
Your
kind
sound
of
is
all
pop.
of it. Like, yeah, it's very pop, you know? And so, and you know, little folk soul, like some people, like when I would perform live, which is like acoustic or like an acoustic trio, they kind of give me like, oh, you remind me of Tracy Chapman vibes sometimes. And I think maybe it had more to do with like how I looked and a little bit of my sound, because I do have that folk sound as well, just depending on, you know, what kind of song I wrote and sing. Because I also write really cool, I think, good country music. So I was going to do a whole country album at some
I
point
feel the
because I love
same, by the
country.
way. I feel like
Yeah.
I write great country music. We should write country music together sometime. That actually sounds
Country
phenomenal.
album, country album.
I'm
That's
totally
me,
down to
Amanda
write some
Dumas,
country.
coming
Okay.
to a town near you.
Yeah, no, that's dope. Okay, wait, continue. Sorry. Sorry, that just made me think of that.
So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, so that was the journey, you know, and after touring, you know, it got to the point where I think I was just, you know, I got discouraged. You know, with the industry, it was very um how you looked, and you know, oh, like you need to stay skinny, and like I'm, you know, nice and plump now, but back then I thought I was super super fat, and I'm like, girl, if I look the way I did before, I'll be like running the streets naked. But you know, it's like that's what happens in the entertainment business, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think it just really affected my self-esteem, and I was just kind of over it. I was like, I wanted to do things on my terms. And I
Hmm.
just felt like I was so young. You know, I was a professional performer at 7 years old. I, you know, was in an independent film that was in the Sundance Film Festival called Belly Fruit. I was like, I had a small role, but I had some lines, and, you know, did commercials, all this stuff. But like, as a young performer, everyone's telling you who you should be or
Hmm.
who they think you should be. And when you kind of grow up in that, when you're transitioning into adulthood, it's hard because those people, if you're still working with the same people, they're still seeing you as that little child. And so for me, it was a lot about finding my own voice. And I just didn't feel that I had one. And so I decided to kind of break away and do, you know, hold on, I don't know if, hold on one second, somebody's calling me. And send a voicemail. Um, so I, you know, I just decided that I wanted to like not do music for a while.
Hmm.
And you know, I went back to school, and then I got into medical billing and coding and got my board certification as a coder. I'm actually in school now at UNLV for going to get my undergraduate in accounting, because I feel like, you know, at the end of the day, anything in business is about money. And so I want to make sure that I can, you know, understand that, because the biggest thing was like you hire managers and you hire publicists and you hire everyone else to manage your life, but if you don't know how, you know, what all that means, you can't really sniff out when someone's not doing, you know, not on the up and up. So that's kind of where my journey led me. And then I started, you know, my whole life I never stopped writing. So I literally, like, people joke, and I have like, I wanted to put out a record of half songs, because like I always like I'll write part of a song and then like
Hmm.
that's it. They're like, finish the song, and I'm like, I can't. And that's why I like to collaborate, because I feel like if I could just collaborate on all of my half songs, and they'd be whole songs, and it'd be amazing, you know. But yeah, that's kind of my journey.
That's crazy though. Sorry, hearing your story about how they kind of pigeonholed you. I think that's so insane because I look at you and I'm like, oh, she's this phenomenal like pop singer with like an acoustic pop vibe going on, which I respect the heck out of because that's kind of I'm kind of in that same genre. At least I was before, especially I did this hip hop album. I felt like that was my like key genres, like acoustic pop. And you're so phenomenal within that space, I think. So I think it's so
Oh,
foolish for someone to look at your track and just be like, "Oh, like here, let me go get the R&B division." It's like, "No, no, no, like this is pop music. You got to understand. Like
yeah.
it's
Hmm.
not meant to be
And
anything else."
I think it was also like, it was around the transition of music, where
Mhm.
a lot of stuff was digital. And I think also, it was in between, it was kind of coming out of that where people would have production deals where you would have like this production company that would create you, and you'd have a writing team, and where they were kind of making your whole thing as an artist. And like those still exist, especially with K-pop going around, right? Like they're kind of like the new like production machines and everything, so there's always going to be that. However, I think as a solo artist and as a person of color, it's now I think more than ever, there's a lot more diversity. And like, even when you see artists like, before people are like, oh, this is just like, this is, or not just, but like, this is a singer-songwriter, or this is, this star singer performer. But now, like, if you hear other singers, songwriters, performers talk about themselves, they're entrepreneurs now. Before, they were, I'm a rapper, I'm an R&B artist, but now entrepreneurs. Like, look at 50 Cent. Yeah, he came out rapping, he went to school, got his business degree, and this guy's like a full on investment king. Like with silver, like if I was reading about him, I'm like, okay, 50 Cent, give me layers. So I think that people in general are taking those walls of that square box that we used to be put in for so many years,
Mm.
as artists. And now you don't, I mean, and if you even think like touch on you know gender fluidity and sexual fluidity and everything, like there's so many, there's no like, okay, it's either this or it's that, right? Now there's like so many things in between. Before it was LGBTQ, now it's like LGBTQIA, and like everything is kind of evolved over the last couple years, I'll say, even though it's like decades. But it's so yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is. And also the fear of failure. I think, I had really bad anxiety too. And just, you
Mm.
get to this place like always being in front of people, in front of producers, and just the stress of like, oh, you have a callback for an audition, and now you're going to go on the producers, and now you're on a deal. This is a big deal. And it's like, oh, can I just like, the joy was kind of sucked out of it for me. Like what made, I think, my talent shine was the joy that it brought me just to sing and dance and be a ham and to create, and then at some point you put that business aspect into it as a child, especially, and then it becomes like, so like, this is getting a little intense for me, like I just want to enjoy the moment. And I think now, as a grown woman, I'm able to enjoy it again on my terms and be like, you know what?
Mm.
It's not that serious. This is, if I can spread joy and love and be good within myself and do things that I want to do that make me feel good and that inspire other people, then I feel good about it. And so that's kind of where it's come full circle. And 2024 is the year of infinity, Kevin. Okay. It is an eight, technically, because you have
Two, two,
2024.
four.
So, yep. So it's the year of infinity. We're coming right back around. And now I feel like this is like a good vibe year. Good vibe year.
Yeah. Man, every time I interact with you, I'm blown away by just the layers to you as an individual and an artist. I did not know about your whole, like everything that happened with you in getting signed and then like working through that and then having them having them deny you. And I think you're so right that nowadays, if you were to come out as that like same artist, they'd be pumped.
It would be so different. And, people would tell me all the time, like, you need to go to Europe, you need to go overseas. Because like in America versus like other countries, it's also a little bit different. But yeah, I agree. I think if I came out, now younger, or even now, like, because, back then, once I turned like 25, I think I was like, oh my God, my career is over. I'm done. I'm done. But now, I mean, look, you got like The Voice where people are like in their 40s trying auditioning,
Mm,
American Idol still has the age cap, whatever, it's fine. But it's like, there's so many changes. It's not, you don't have to worry about age or anything. Like, and even, Sia, I mean, it's not like she's some teenager. She's
no.
freaking killing it. And she's a woman. And she is, no one sees her age in her artistry, right? And it's like, it wasn't like that years and years and years ago. And now it is. So it's like kind of like that rejuvenated opportunity to be like, oh, maybe this is my time to really authentically be the artist that I've always been, but
Mm,
also maybe be seen and maybe not. Like, at the end of the day, who cares? Like, it's for me to see myself more and to know that like I'm enough within the scope of everything. Like, this is just who I am and this is the path I'm supposed to be on, regardless if, you know, I'm famous or not. It doesn't matter anymore. It just matters that I have, you know, joy, in what I do in my life.
yeah. Oh man, so much to unpack there. I think it's interesting too, thinking about like all that and like the differences in times. Back then, it's only like 15, 16, 17 years ago that Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry came out and everyone lost their minds. And we're like,
Right.
how dare this song exist?
Right.
And so like you as like a lesbian artist too, I bet you're like there wasn't a place back then for people like you know, in that specific way,
Yeah, I
which is
mean, I couldn't
insane.
even really come out. Yeah, like it was a thing where, you don't, being like fluid and everything, and being married to a woman and African American, and it was definitely like, something where that wasn't something you wore as a badge of honor or really discussed as an identity of any type of sort,
Yeah.
and now it's something that is a little bit more celebrated, or at least accepted, to where you can just be who you are, and that doesn't really define you and your talent and your knowledge and all that stuff.
Yeah, totally. It's so interesting how much the world is like a different place and how like personally I forget about it sometimes because I was reading this thing recently. One of my favorite artists is Utada Hikaru, who's this Japanese pop artist, and she's
Oh, I'm gonna have to
phenomenal.
check her out.
Oh, her voice is crazy. I
Ooh.
I love it. Her stuff is great. And so she's been a massive artist in Japan. She's from New York, but she's been
Okay.
a massive artist in Japan for the past like 20 years. And at one point, she tried to break into the United States, into like the US pop market, and
Hmm.
they wouldn't, like, she couldn't get in. And her music's great, but her stated reason is like, they're just not ready for an Asian woman to be topping the pop charts. And I was thinking, I was like, holy cow, like, before K-pop became a real thing, you didn't have Asian American women topping the pop charts ever,
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
which is wild.
I know. Like, you look at it today, you're like, what? But yeah, I mean, it's 100% true. You just think about all of that exposure to beautiful art that we've been missing in the States for so long.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, yeah, it's just annoying. It's annoying too because I look at someone like you and I'm like when I think of you, I don't think of first and foremost you being black. I think like, oh, Amanda, she's this fun, outgoing person. And if anything, it's like from LA. Like
Right, right.
I
I remember
envision
you told me
you,
that. You're like, you're very LA, I like it.
yeah, you're more LA than you are like anything else. And I feel like it's weird that people have trouble like seeing past that. And I think it's there to some extent too. I think you would definitely see it in like country music, for example, where it's very hard for them to accept anyone. Like I even recently was talking to some people with Beyonce. And like, this is
Oh
Beyonce deciding to do
yeah.
a country song, which is beautiful and
Uh-huh.
wonderful. And I heard someone say, like, well, it's not really country music though. And I'm like, she's from Texas.
But let's talk about country music for a second. Country music has pivoted a lot over the years, and country music that was country music is no longer old school country music. Okay, let's be honest. It's pop and hip hop. Like, give me a break. Like, it's already pivoted to this, they have like branches of the country genre that are not traditional country sound,
Yeah.
so you can't even say that anymore. You cannot.
No, it's insane. It's insane that people still say that because I listen to them like, well, have you guys listened to Sam Hunt? Like, what the crap is your problem?
Yes, exactly,
Like, get over it. That's my viewpoint toward that
Same.
ridiculousness. And it's yeah, it's just it's a weird thing. Yeah, but your career has been so fascinating. So are you working on new music and like putting out new stuff now, or are you like what's the current vibe? You're working on audiobooks.
Yeah, I just, since I moved out here, just slowly trying to figure out where I wanted to go. I mean, I really have this strong passion for childhood education
Hmm.
and teaching through music. And so that is something that I still want to work towards and do YouTube videos and actually do like a lot of children's music. At some point, I have a lot of stuff written. I just need to record it. And there's this really great potty song that I wrote and recorded that I need to release because I think it's almost done. And then also, honestly, the collaboration that you and I have done is like really the first thing that I've, recorded since I've been out here that, is completed. And so, like, I mean, I'm so excited to kind of have this experience with you as my, part of my beginning of my journey out here
Yeah.
in Vegas. And then, yeah, with audiobooks, it's just trying to find multiple streams of revenue that involve my voice and creativity and just like that expression, me on the mic kind of thing. So yeah, audiobooks, I think it's a really cool thing to do. And the books that I'm doing are very interesting and like, I don't know, it's just fun. But yeah, I think, right now I probably would focus on maybe singles. I've always
Yeah.
wanted to kind of do a compilation album because I'm so like, if you look at photos of me over the last like 10, 15 years, you'd be like, oh my God, like these are all different people, just like my look alone.
Yeah.
And I'm always kind of morphing into different versions of myself. So it would be kind of cool to do like, oh, a country song, a pop song, like make it like a full on like a compilation record. But I don't know. I have a lot of songs that I need to record. And for me, I do like to collaborate. So um the first step is getting my studio up and running so I have a good place to record. And then next step is, working with a friend that maybe could help engineer it or record it and collab. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know who might be
I don't
interested.
know. I don't know. I don't know.
But yeah, so that's where
Yeah.
I'm at right now. It's just kind of, letting it go where it goes, not putting too much pressure
Yeah.
on myself, but performing, a lot more definitely. I want to, gig out. I mean, and just
Yeah.
slowly start doing more shows. And I would love to book a residency in Vegas at some point somewhere,
Yeah.
like at a hotel, and just have some fun,
Yeah.
just create.
I love that. I love that idea. I actually um because you're on the bill for the April 12th show for the release of Flows. And part of the reason I wanted you on that
Yes.
show is because I was like, I don't like I'll talk to hip hop people sometimes and they'll be like, "Oh man, Kevin, like you have such a good voice. We want you like singing on our songs." And I'm like, I don't think these hip hop people know enough of like the great singers we have in Vegas. And so part of my thought was like, "Oh, I'll get Amanda on this show so that she can connect with like all these hip hop people too because I feel like once they hear you they're going to be like, "Okay, we need Amanda on more hooks because she's just
Oh
brilliantly good."
my God.
Yeah.
You're so sweet to think of me. I mean, I'm just excited to be a part of your release. I'm so excited to support you in this new record. And, it's just great to be a part of something for such an awesome dude. I mean, you're so
Thanks.
cool and so nice
I
and
appreciate that.
talented. So
Thanks.
I'm just happy that you thought of me, and I'm so happy to open the show and just like hope we got to get the people out. I'm like, y'all, and it's my birthday,
I
April
know it's your
12th. It's
birthday. I
gonna
know
be
when
my
you told me
birthday.
that, I was like, this is perfect because I don't know about you, but for myself, like doing shows on my birthday is like the best.
That's what I said. I'm like, this is perfect. Why not bring in my birthday, singing for people, singing for my friends, and
Yeah.
just enjoying and being a creative person that I am? I think I couldn't have a better birthday. So thank you for having your release on my birthday. I'm so excited.
I know. I'm super excited for that show. That show's gonna be really fun.
It's gonna be lit. It's gonna be lit.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird because it's so far out, but I'm already like,
But
I
it's
gotta
so
prep
close.
for this. It's so
It
close.
is
It's
so
so
close.
close. It's so close. Anyway, this has been great. Love working with you. Great talking with you again. I'm one thing I'm pumped about with doing this little podcast series is I just love the idea of being able to like connect again with people like you who I'm like, there's not enough opportunities to kind of like get together and just like hang out and talk. And so this has been phenomenal.
Thank you so much. I enjoy talking to you every time I do. So I can't wait to chat again. And we'll see you for sure in April. And
Yeah,
then to be tuned. I mean, who knows what we'll come up with next.
absolutely. I'm very excited. Anyway, great talking to you. I'll see you later.
Thanks, Kev.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
All right, let's talk about episode 5 of Shōgun.
What an episode. I texted you as soon as I finished watching it and said, wow, what an episode.
And I had to catch it just before recording and finish it up because I once again realized it's not a background show. You
No.
have to be paying attention.
Especially this episode is not a background show.
Definitely not. Episode 5, titled Broken to the Fist. An intense episode start to finish, but also I think this is the first episode we've seen the action ramped up as much as it has been the whole time. Pretty emotional all the way through.
Yeah, they didn't really jump into the war elements that I was expecting them to with Toranaga's son that had utilized the cannons on Ishido's men, but they spent a lot of time. So basically, Mariko-sama's husband survived somehow, and we're not really told how he survived. But the last we saw him, he was on the docks, and he basically made a sacrifice play so that Toranaga and Blackthorn could make their escape, and we just assumed that he died. But if you don't see their death on screen, you should never assume someone's dead. And as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, of course, I should never have assumed he was dead.
It was a good reveal. Now I have to ask, and maybe you've already got this cleared up. He's called Buntaro, but also Toda. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Buntaro is like a more familiar term, like if you're friends or family with him.
Okay.
And I think Toto is more of a formalistic name.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, when he showed up on screen, Toda, it was extremely awkward, first off, but what a beautiful shot of Mariko in the foreground, emotional. And then in thirds, you have Blackthorn blurred behind her, obviously frustrated and freaked out. What a good dichotomy there. A great shot.
Yeah. And we just are assuming that there's unrest in their marriage, Mariko and Todo-sama. And because we haven't really seen them, at least I don't think we've seen them interact much. But given that in the last episode, Mariko goes into Blackthorn's room and they get it on, I don't think that Mariko was stoked to have her husband back.
No, not from the look of it. And I think we see later in the episode exactly why. Because I think in previous episodes we've seen he's quite sharp with her. He's very controlling, demanding, and honestly just disrespectful, especially by today's terms. And so I had just figured that part. But then we see later in the episode more of why she was so afraid of him still being alive.
Yeah, it's funny that two things. One, that they're playing with the idea that in both European cultures and in Japanese cultures, the wife is the husband's property. And so he can treat her however he wants. And yet Blackthorn is really upset obviously he's upset by the way that Todo-sama is treating Mariko. it's hard to justify. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? That both cultures hold women as property, but somehow there's a tension in the difference between Europeans and the way Europeans and Japanese treat their wives.
I'll be honest. While watching this, all I could think of is Blackthorn the feminist.
I know.
A little early. I can tell, at least for me, this is where some artistic liberties come in, but also a little bit of maybe it is in Western cultures, it's seen as abuse in that way is seen as a very low class thing to do. It felt like, at least for when I was in England, the idea being that if you had more money, if you were a royal, there wasn't as much of that happening in a marriage as much as they would just go to different parts of the house. And so you have Toda, who's an esteemed man in Toranaga's army, and maybe just has some power, has some class, did a very heroic act, and maybe that's why Blackthorn was snapping back at it so much. But I'm with you there, and that it's a little quizzical of like, wait, they both see each other as property, so what are you trying to say here? But
yeah, I will say that scene, Todo-sama moves in to Blackthorn's house because Mariko is still serving as his translator, and no one is happy about that. Yes. There's not one character that's happy about that arrangement. But the scene where they are having dinner, I thought they did a really good job with. It was almost Tarantino-esque, where they kept letting the scene play out longer and longer, when I feel like a less experienced director would have cut away from the scene and transitioned the scenes. And they just like let the scene play itself out in its entirety. Like, it reminded me of that scene in the bar in Inglourious Bastards, where the scene just keeps on going, and it's really good.
Yeah, they let it breathe in a way that may seem slow to some at first, but honestly, it just helps to build the tension the more you go, and the more intense it gets, until finally Todo-sama is shooting arrows past his wife and Fuji's noses. In just a bravado display, which I did love some of the back and forth of Blackthorn and Toda, of slurping the noodles loud, drinking the sake, drinking a whole mug of sake. Each thing just leveling up in a show of masculine force. But it was fun to see it play out in that length of the episode where, to your point, it could have been 2 minutes and we're done. Instead, it was, now you're going to see where the men are really facing off right here in front of the women.
Yeah, and they did a good job of, like, I wasn't really sure where that scene was going either, because there was some version of that scene that I think, like, oh, these two guys who don't speak the same language are getting drunk together, and then they're going to end up being buddies at the end of it.
Yep.
Like, I was like, oh, there's a version of that where that's what's happening. But no, it's just like a dick measuring contest in front of the girls. And it also shows that Todo-sama is really good with his bow and arrow, even when he's hammered.
Yeah.
Which
impressive, but
yeah.
You've seen the meme with sad Darth Vader from Empire Strikes Back when Han walks into dinner and starts shooting him, right?
Yes.
All I can think of is that with Blackthorn and his rabbit stew. No sherry, he's using sake. The poor man is out here just trying to cook a meal of his own making. Here's something from where I come from. It's not that great, but please. And everybody shuts it down. A little sad.
It is a little sad, especially when he went out of his way to try their, like, fermented soybean paste in the last episode.
Yeah. The quote that Mariko gives that I love is, "We are particular eaters." Like, what a way to say it. Not that this smells terrible or that looks gross. It's, we are particular eaters.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't know what rabbit stew tastes like, but he didn't really talk it up much, because he was like, it all becomes gravy basically. And I'm just like, yeah, that's some good British cooking.
Sure is. And yeah, there could have been a few things done on his end to really make it a little better. And I know earlier in the episode, Fuji had told the other house servants, Anjin's knives stay away from our knives. Anything he cooks, we do not touch with our cookware. And it was quite clear of, like, dirty barbarian man does not need to be anywhere near anything that we're going to eat, which is then mirrored later with Todo-sama saying that why are we quartered with him? Barbarians should be with barbarian women. And it's funny because I feel like so often we know and see Western attitudes towards others that way. But it's funny seeing the Japanese, who definitely were like this, as many cultures
Yes.
are, of just having a very clear, like, you are not us and you are lower and you should not be here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What was he trying to do with the pheasant by like stringing it up and letting it decompose? Do you have any idea?
I don't. I couldn't tell if he was trying to let it cure, but he didn't salt it. That was my first thought. I'm like, oh, pheasant jerky. But I was unsure about that.
He didn't salt it or take the guts out, because the guts are where the decomposition comes from. And so I was confused as to what he was doing. And that whole story beat gave me one of my other like jaw-dropping moments of the episode, where basically Blackthorn is getting some kind of a grip on Japanese. Like, he's learned some Japanese, right? But it's very broken, and he doesn't fully get what he's saying, especially because he comes from a different culture where maybe irony or sarcasm is it's more of a thing than in Japan. And so the housekeepers are horrified that he's strung up this pheasant without gutting it, without cleaning it, anything like that. And Blackthorn, in good humor, is just like, no one touches this. In Japanese, he says, no one touches this. He says, touch this and die. And for us, the Western viewer, we hear that and we're like, oh, yeah, he just means like, super don't touch this. Like, I'm doing something, I'm cooking here. But so throughout the course of the episode, like, they just keep making references to this thing as rotting. Like, it's in the foreground and it's buzzing with flies. Or like the flies that are being infesting this thing are like buzzing around someone's head while they're having a conversation. And so they're just like constantly referencing the fact that this pheasant is just rotting in his yard. And it's a problem for everyone, because no one understands what he's trying to. I don't even understand what he's trying to do with it until at the end, Blackthorn comes into the house and everyone is really distraught and really sad. And he's like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, the gardener removed your pheasant, so we killed him.
Yeah.
and then we as the audience have the same reaction that Blackthorn has, which is just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Just insane.
I believe the gardener's name, I might butcher this, wrong choice of words. The gardener's name was Uejiro.
Yeah.
I was wondering during the episode why they kept cutting to the gardener chat. I was like, this is fun slice of life. I understand it for the culture, but why do we keep watching these guys? And yes, to your point, when we find out that he has been executed because of Blackthorn's comment, I don't even know
Poor
the
choice
word.
of words.
Poor choice of words. It's almost like having to step on every single stone like he does in the last episode of Stay Off the Moss. Be completely intentional, directional, because anything you do is dishonorable or can be taken in the wrong way. And this is like a physical representation of that. So, of course, he goes afterward and is just furious and heads on to Toranaga and says, I got to get out of here. Give me my boat. Give me my men. I'm done. I never want to see Japan again. And I think it's interesting because all the things that were going right for Blackthorn earlier have now started going wrong. Mariko tells him she only wants to translate, not to speak with him, because he walks in on her after her husband has just abused her. He's not friends with the house staff anymore. Things were going well with Fuji, and that's not working well. The food is wrong. The people are wrong. He's learning the language, but then he says the wrong words and gets the gardener executed. So I think it's like a nice crux of, everything's happening wrong. He wants to get out of there. He's done. He's not having fun anymore. And then, of course, we have a massive earthquake. So what a nice little tail end to that moment.
Especially right after Mariko says the same words that she says in 2 episodes ago, when she was like, you live and then you die, and we have little control over everything in between. Yeah. And she said that 2 episodes ago, and then there was an earthquake, and she just barely said that to Blackthorn again. And then a giant earthquake hits. And this is a big one, and it swallows people, and the hillside slides off and buries half the town, and Toranaga gets caught up in it. And it was another jaw dropping, just like, oh, holy cow, like, what's happening? And yeah, it was just like, it was just a lot happened.
Yeah. And by the end of the episode, we have a veiled look at what's about to happen next with this woman who walks up to Ashido and says, the council will answer to me. And we believe her to be the heir of the last samurai. Is that right?
The last...
the one
Taiko?
that died before it was split up into 5 regions.
I think she's the mom of the kid who's the heir.
Oh, there we go. Okay. That makes it clearer. Yeah, because he runs up saying, Mom. Okay.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting and exciting to see a woman coming in to take the throne, and she seems like she's out for blood. So.
Yeah. I don't know whose blood, but out for blood in general.
I have one last thing for this episode I want to cover before we wrap it up, which is Toranaga. There's an amazing tweet that I just need to send you, but I'll read it first. Toranaga from Shōgun's an incredibly cool character for several reasons, but mostly because he loves to disappear for a while, and then he returns in the sickest fit you've ever seen. And nothing is more true. Every time he shows up after a little excursion, it's like, okay, just the best samurai armor we've ever seen. He chastises his son, calls him out, has a great speech about how all men are falcons. Later in the episode, we come back to a tent with him, and again, his drip is just impeccable. We have to give it to him. I know he was just on recent interviews, and a bunch of outlets were talking to him, and he said he did all of his own stunts. He rode the horses, he shot the arrows, he did all of that, which is amazing. But also, he made every single piece of clothing he wore look fantastic.
Yes, he did. Huge shout out to the costuming. They've just done such a good job.
Oh, yeah. Episode 6, we'll see what happens next. I think it's going to be more battles, but I'm also just loving the twist of grand scale battles, environment, but also we are so in the home and person to person and in small moments. I think they're doing a great job, and that should continue through the rest of the season. We hope everyone's enjoyed this week's episode of the Indie Magazine podcast. Be sure to rate, subscribe, and share with friends who enjoy music, movies, and TV talk. And we'll be back with another episode from the series soon, where Kevin will sit down with Jan, and you don't want to miss that. Until then, listen to good music and watch good TV.